next speaker is Diane Lambdin, who's going to be known to many people here. Diane set up the Sussex HR Hub, which is a specialist consultancy for businesses managing change. She's talking about 5 epic HR failures. A little bit about Diane. She completed the South Downs Way, which is I've written down 100 metres, but I think I meant 100 miles earlier this year. She has no internet presence at all. I always Google the speakers to try and find something out about them, just to embarrass them when they're on stage. Diane doesn't even exist on the internet. She's like a ghost. But she has told me, because Gillian was mentioning she's been to every prison throughout the... Sorry, I'm just going to ignore you now for a second, Diane. When I was at university, I actually went on a criminology prison trip to... I forget the name of the prison, but I was up in Leeds at university. I went to a nearby prison, and we went into the warden's office. They were called wardens back in those days, and she was... the warden served us all tea. We were super keen students. And after the woman, the prisoner who'd been serving the tea, went out, the warden said to us, "Do you know who that was?" And it was Myra Hindley. Sort of everyone wanted to spit out their tea, but no one was quite brave enough. But Diane was actually born in Broadmoor.
At Broadmoor.
What's the difference between in and at?
Just 30 yards outside the wall.
But your heart is in Broadmoor. She's also a fabulous speaker, and as I said, she's talking on 5 epic HR failures. Big round of applause for Diane, please.
Well, thank you for that introduction, Daniel. I'm sure some people will want to know more about my being born at Broadmoor later. Epic HR failures. It was difficult to choose just 5 because there are just so many, aren't there? And I seem to think that the biggest failures are the ones that we all tend to hear about. And so I've chosen examples of some big brands that have hit the headlines over the last few years. And I think it just shows how HR and PR are so closely aligned. So you may remember the BBC still failing women over equal pay. And I would just say that the headlines up here are the actual headlines that were in the newspapers and on social media at the time of these cases. This caused huge reputational damage. And the headline today would probably be BBC still failing women over equal pay, wouldn't it? So I don't think that's really gone away. It might have been improved a little bit. And another one, Byron Hamburgers, with their alleged fake staff meetings, which turned into an immigration raid. Can you remember that? That was back in 2016. Well, whatever your view on the rights and wrongs of these apparent failures, one thing I think can't be denied, and that is that they were picked up very quickly and reported by the media, including newspapers, TV, radio, social media platforms, etc. Now, publicity can be a great thing, and personally I love it. But the overriding message of the cases I'm highlighting today is that these stories were negative, and inevitably it impacted on the public's perception of their brands, of the company's brands and their reputations. I'd like you just to think each time I introduce another example, where was HR in this? The Queen's grocer too came in for massive negative publicity when trying to introduce a new scheme to share out tips in return for staff taking a lower basic wage. It's called tronking. I'd never heard of that either, tronking systems. And apparently there are organisations that will run your tronking system, and their publicity themselves, when they're marketing themselves, is that they can do an ethical tronk. I would like to know a little bit more about that if I was a member of staff working for a company that wanted to introduce a tronking system. Now, I believe that the majority of the staff at F&M did actually agree to the change, so it couldn't have been all bad. But the point being is that the media stories had been round the world before the full facts of the case got their boots on. So it's really important for HR to be thinking about the publicity and what might happen. Probably always worth thinking, does this pass the Daily Mail test? I think we all think about that on occasions. Now, the next one's probably my favourite one, and it's probably because the HR team themselves were quite irreverent and they actually joined in with the publicity. You may remember, it goes back a little bit more, this was 2013, in the case of HMV, where their now former employees took to the company's official Twitter account to live blog the official receivers or the company administrators laying off nearly 200 staff. One tweet read, "I've just overheard the marketing director ask, how do I shut down Twitter?" So, I mean, I hope he eventually lost his job too. He probably did after that. The first one is we're tweeting live from HR. We're being fired. Exciting. Next one up. There are over 60 of us being fired at once. Mass execution of loyal employees who love the brand. And I think the top one is from HR saying, sorry, we've been so quiet for so long. We're under contract. We've been unable to say a word, or more importantly, tell the truth. So this was actually being tweeted while people were being dismissed. And I guess once the HR team knew that they were going, that's when they started the tweet. I think the company then looked into very close their strategy for social media and training of their senior managers. But, you know, where was, well, apart from HMV, where we do know where HR were at the time, where were HR during all of these cases? You might say, well, some of the senior management took it upon themselves to do things the way they wanted to do. But it's a big question mark, isn't it? What role do HR play in these very important processes? I would just ask, how can companies get these pretty fundamental HR strategies so completely wrong and so badly underestimate the impact on their employee relations and the public relations? Now, my final one, I don't know how many of you might know this company, where the chief exec fired an entire company division during a press conference, and the people working in that division actually were in the audience at the time. Okay, so it's a fictional company. It's on TV in America, Hooli, of Silicon Valley fame. But I'm sure some of you in the audience can think of some similar cringe-worthy occasions when you've been present or sat through this type of behaviour. Again, where were HR in this? I've certainly been in the room when some of these types of things have happened. Not as an HR person, I have to add, it wasn't my advice to do that. So remember that our people in our companies expect HR to do things properly, and we're often seen as the custodian of the company's moral compass. So that's not Captain Jack Sparrow's compass, where we point it in the direction of where we want to be or where our heart's desire might lay. It's about doing things right. The media are never far away from a good story, and others are watching too. And I'll just wrap up by saying, if we get it right, it enhances the company's reputation. If we get it wrong, well then I think we're an epic failure too. Thank you.